Welcome to my first video on the joy of negative emotions. I'm going to begin this by teaching you the art skills that I developed for my own personal use in controlling my negative emotions and shared it with others that's been helpful for them. Let's start by noticing that human emotions come in two flavors, positive ones and negative ones. Positive emotions are those feelings that when they dominate my life, life is very good. Emotions like joy and love and curiosity. On the other hand, negative emotions are those feelings that when they dominate my life, life is bad. Life really sucks when these negative emotions take over our lives. The big ones like anxiety and depression wreak havoc in people's lives daily. The smaller ones like jealousy cause problems too and destroy relationships. If this is true, how could there possibly be any joy in negative emotions? Well, I'm going to tell you, but first a little bit more about emotions. My favorite psychiatrist, William Glasser, points out that emotions are only one of 4 parts of human behavior. The other 3 are actions, physiology, and thoughts. We have direct control over 2 of them, our thoughts and our actions, and we have indirect control over our physiology and our emotions. You can demonstrate that by clapping your hands once. That's an action. You can do that immediately. You can figure out a simple math problem immediately in your head. 2 plus 2 equals 4. That's something else you can do immediately. But if I ask you to get your heart rate to go up to 110 or 120 and to do that immediately, you couldn't. You would have to think and do things that would create that physiology of a heart rate to go up. For me, just thinking about running makes my heart rate go up. Most of you, though, would have to do the action as well and do some jumping jacks or running or something. The same way with emotions. You don't have direct control over your emotions, and if I asked you to get so sad that you started to cry and to do that immediately, you couldn't. But if you lingered on thoughts that invited sadness and did things that invited sad feelings, eventually they would follow. Dr. Glasser uses the analogy of the 4 wheels on a car to demonstrate how we have immediate control over thoughts and actions. We can grab the steering wheel and turn the front wheels immediately, and eventually the back wheels will follow. So thoughts and actions are like the front wheels, and emotions and physiology are like the back wheels. By turning the steering wheel, we can direct our behavior to go in any kind of direction that we want to by taking control over our thoughts and our actions. When I think about the 4 parts of human behavior being like wheels, I think of dragsters. I think that most of us are like dragsters at times. Those big back wheels on a dragster are so powerful that when they get lit up, they bring the front wheels right off the ground. So it is with our powerful emotions. Sometimes when they take control of our lives, they decide which direction my behavior is going to go because they bring those front wheels of thoughts and actions right up off the ground and out of control. So be careful about these emotions. They're extremely powerful. I think a better analogy for negative emotions, though, are fire alarms. Think about some of the aspects of fire alarms. Fire alarms are powerful and loud. When they go off, you can't ignore them. If a fire alarm went off right now in this room and I tried to ignore it, it would drive me crazy. Fire alarms do not accurately predict catastrophes. There will be hundreds and thousands of fire alarms go off in the world today, but there will not be hundreds and thousands of catastrophes. Fire alarms are not made to accurately predict catastrophes. They're made to go off at the slightest potential of a catastrophe so that we can be alerted to that even if one isn't going off, but we ought to check it out. They're disruptive when they go off. They're usually and often unpredictable. They require maintenance to work properly. There is no joy or peace until they're turned off. But if a catastrophe is happening or is about to happen, they are extremely valuable and important and useful to us humans. There are some appropriate and wise things to do when a fire alarm goes off. We should first pay attention to it. The second thing we should do is determine what the risk is. Why did the fire alarm go off? And reduce that risk if there is something that is a potential hazard or potential catastrophe. We should make ourselves safe. After we're sure we're safe and that the risk is low, we should turn off the alarms. And we should do things so that the alarms only go off when they should. I've taken some of these aspects of fire alarm and developed them into what I call AART skills. The first A in AART skills stands for acknowledge and accept. Do not ignore negative emotions. When I think about the idea of stuffing or ignoring emotions, I think of one of my favorite actors, Leonard Nimoy. Leonard Nimoy plays the character of Spock in the highly successful TV and film series of Star Trek. The character he plays is an emotionless character who has developed a skill set that he stuffs his emotions, and so he is only an intelligent and not an emotional creature. Leonard wrote a book called I Am Not Spock, and in that book he talks about a time when he was talking to Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek, and for no reason at all he burst into tears. He had been stuffing his emotions to play this character, and he had stuffed them so deeply and so well that they just come bursting out when he had no control over them one day, and at a time when he wished they hadn't come out. Do not stuff emotions. They will eventually find a way to come out, and it'll probably be a time that's not convenient for you. The second A in the AART skills is to analyze the risk and to assess what's going on. What you want to do is you want to figure out why the alarm went off. Keep in mind that just like a fire alarm that goes off a lot, even when there isn't a catastrophe, so it is with negative emotions. I believe that often negative emotions go off when there isn't any other reason for them to go off, but that a person has made them into a habit. Any of those four parts of human behavior can become a habit. And so you have to analyze this risk knowing that there probably isn't a reason for them to come on because there really isn't a catastrophe going on. The third skill, or the R skill, is to reduce the risk to a reasonable level. If the alarm went off because it's really a false alarm, there really wasn't a reason, then it's likely that the risk was already at a reasonable level. Keep in mind that you don't want to be going overboard when you're going to try to reduce the risk to an acceptable level. This is another time when I think that the fire alarm and fire works well with this analogy. It is possible that someday I might die in a fire. And if I just happened to be wearing a fireman's suit like this when that fire started, it would certainly reduce the risk of me dying in that fire. So, would it be wise for me to walk around the rest of my life looking like this? No, because I would be giving up on a lot of other things that could be happening in my life that are joyful and wonderful if I were trying to walk around and spend my life in a fireman's suit. The final skill, the T skill, is to turn off the alarm. I turn off the alarm by steering my thoughts and my actions in directions that will invite positive emotions. We all should know what things help us shift our emotions and steer them from negative ones to positive ones. For me, the most powerful one in my life is music. I find that music has the ability to shift my emotions from negative ones to positive ones very quickly and very nicely. Another very powerful way is to journal, especially if you journal about positive and joyful events in your life. Let me give you an example of how I use these AART skills. One of the negative emotions that's been most troublesome for me is jealousy. These two black and white photographs on the sides are ones taken when my sweetheart wife and I were young parents. Our younger son was only 5 at the time and was given an assignment in kindergarten to go through magazines and cut out pictures of his mom and his dad. The pictures in the corners are the ones that he selected. Notice he found a beautiful model to be his mom and a smiling country western singer for his dad. Those probably are pretty accurate. The photograph in the middle is more recent, now that we are grandparents and all the kids have left and all we have is just my wife and I and the dog. But still, my wife gets compliments about her looks, and I get questions about how come I have such an attractive wife. Recently, in order to get us ready to do a contest, the director in a chorus that I sing in told us that we should think about a beautiful woman and a romantic setting to put us in the right mood to sing a song. One of the fellows turned around and looked at me loud enough for everyone to hear and say, "When I sing this song, I'm going to be thinking about your wife." And when things like that happen in my life, the alarm of jealousy goes off. So I put together these skills. I acknowledge that that's what happened. I don't try to stuff the emotion or pretend I'm not jealous. I then analyze the risk. Might I lose my wife someday? I can. She's just really, really wonderful and cool and beautiful. The next thing I want to do is reduce the risk to an acceptable level. Now, when I think about this, most of us guys and most people, when they have a negative emotion, they react the wrong way. Punching a guy out because my wife has been told that she's cute by him, or isolating her, and other negative things that guys do when they get jealous, only increase the risk of me losing her. So the next thing I want to do is I want to reduce the risk by doing things that actually do that. I take her out on dates, and I share joyful events with her in my life. The last thing I do is turn off the alarm. And like I say, one of the most positive ways for me is to use music. So how can there possibly be any joy in negative emotions? There can be joy in them when you use them the right way, to identify that there might be a catastrophe in your life. It would be a catastrophe in my life if I were to lose my sweetheart. But by using these skills after some 40 plus years, I think I'm reducing the risk of losing her. And that creates much joy in my life. Also, doing those things like taking her out on dates and doing the things that actually reduce the risk bring joy in my life too. Thanks for listening. Best of luck steering towards positive emotions and using the negative ones